The Washington Post, The Guardian, and Salon. He regularly appears on CNN to discuss politics and current affairs. Please welcome Wajahat Ali.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Urs, for making me sound awesome. If I wasn't married, I could easily get 2 ristas off of that amazing biodata introduction. That was amazing. My wife is listening to that right now on Facebook saying that is not the man I married. But thank you, Urs. How's everyone doing? Thank you for that overwhelmingly enthusiastic response. That was amazing. Calm down. Just please Auntie, take a seat, relax. Calm down, simmer down, Muslims. Jeez, these Canadian Muslims, Fuzan, man, out of control. You guys are all looking at me right now and asking yourself the same exact question, I know. Hey, he's not Hassan Minhaj. No, I'm not Hassan. I'm also not Fareed Zakaria, Russell Peters, Raza Aslan, Mehdi Hassan, or Mindy Kaling. I'm the guy that Fuzan gets when all of them say no. I'm literally honored to be standing here as your desperate 7th pick last choice speaker to discuss media and fake news. Thank you. I will take all of the applause. Thank you. Thank you. Fuzan backstage said he's paying me over in leftover halal chicken tikka meat. Leftover chicken tikka, and I'm grateful, Fuzan. I'm grateful. Everything that I just said was absolutely true and a fact. Here's another truth bombshell. I'm thrilled that we Muslims can finally and openly say Mubarakbad to our Muslim brother Barack Hussein Obama, who was born in Indonesia and forged his birth certificate, Takbir, Allahu Akbar. Thank you, white liberals, for electing him twice. Here are 10 other true facts I'd like to finally get off my chest now that I'm no longer in United States of America. Number 1, yes, there is a war on Christmas, and it is waged by a Justice League of Muslims, Jews, and atheists. 2, yes, Ingrid Mattson owns dogs and she loves them. 3, yes, Hillary Clinton kept a child slave ring in the basement of a Virginia pizzeria. But her emails, brother, but her emails. Too soon? Too soon? My bad. 4, yes, there will be rivers of Tim Hortons coffee in Jannat. Don't ask me, Sheikh Yasser Qadhi told me. It's a weak hadith. It's a weak hadith. Blame the Qadhi, not me. 5, yes, Donald Trump called Mexicans rapists and criminals. 6, yes, Justin Trudeau has converted to Islam and he's looking for a wife on Minder. Ladies, swipe right. Swipe right, take out the phone. The husband's not looking, swipe right. 7, yes, Donald Trump was right that you have to dip your bullets into pig's blood in order to kill Islamic radicals because apparently regular bullets don't work. 8, yes, according to a study last year, Americans thought there were 54 million Muslims in America, even though there's only about 4 million of us, because apparently we're like gremlins. If you feed us hummus after night, we multiply. That's an 80s pop cultural joke. All the uncles and aunties are laughing. The kids are like, what's a gremlin? Number 9, yes, the smartphone is Dajjal. The camera lens is a floating grape. Yes. And 10, finally, yes, Sherman Jackson was unanimously voted as the best dressed Muslim scholar of North America. Imam Zayd did not come in the top 10. I'm sorry. 3 of the previous 10 comments I just made were true. I'll let you guess which ones. Or maybe all of them were true. Or maybe none. What does it matter? I mean, really. According to the latest Gallup study, only 41% of Americans have confidence in the media, which actually, mashallah, is an 8% increase from last year, which was the lowest number in the past 50 years. Really, believe what you want, whatever you want. Whatever information soothes your bias and opinions, that's news. Whatever you dislike is fake news. Truth is like Play-Doh. It's malleable. Facts can be ignored when they're inconvenient. Bend them into alternative facts. And the ones that make you feel uncomfortable, well, let's just call them lies and discard them from our social media feed. In fact, let's just discard words that make us feel uncomfortable. That's what the Trump administration said to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention earlier last week. Here are the 7 naughty words the CDC are no longer allowed to mention in their reports. Number 1, diversity. Number 2, fetus. Number 3, transgender. Number 4, vulnerable. Number 5, entitlement. Number 6, science-based. Number 7, evidence-based. Here are two other scary words. Wait for it, trigger warning, Sharia. Here's another word, taqiyya. Be honest, who here actually knows what taqiyya means? Be honest. Look around. Nobody knows, only Fauzan, who's a nerd, knows. I've gone to Muslim majority countries for 7 years. I've asked them what taqiyya is. Most Muslims think taqiyya is a new taco released by Taco Bell with extra salsa and guacamole. Taqiyya sounds delicious, okay? But what taqiyya they've deliberately misdefined to mean is Muslims are commanded to lie about their true agenda, which is implementing Sharia and replacing Western democracies. They're deliberately manipulating and misdefining words. Historian Timothy Snyder, who studied the rise of fascism in Europe and the rise of Nazism, wrote that, quote, post-truth is pre-fascism. I'll repeat that. Post-truth is pre-fascism. In an interview with me, he also said, hostility to the truth, especially as witnessed during the Trump administration, is a characteristic of all forms of modern tyranny. Hostility to truth. Words, language, facts, and truth matter, especially to an informed citizenry where newspapers are now seen as, quote, enemies of the people. Aha, I have a solution, you say, auntie and uncle. You do? Throw away the smartphone. Kill Dajjal. Harami, look at this Dajjal. I've read all the studies. Am I allowed to say Harami? No? Already said it. It's kids, don't say it. It's a bad word. Not really. Aunties and uncles say, kill Dajjal. I've read all the studies. It proves that it's making us dumb. It's hurting our attention span. It's making us misinformed. It's ruining society. It's forcing our children to swipe right on Minder. It's making us vulnerable to propaganda, filth, and Game of Thrones. I don't want to watch Game of Thrones, but it's on my smartphone and it's so good. And then other people are saying, but I really love taking selfies on Snapchat. Candy Crush is amazing. I love WhatsApp. Who doesn't like WhatsApp? Are you going to take away my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram? Don't take away my Instagram. And for better or worse, adults in America spent 10 hours and 39 minutes each day in front of screens last year consuming media, according to a CNN study, which is fake news, by the way. No one is getting rid of the internet or social media. It's here to stay. And it's a tool. It's a tool. And a tool is as useful or detrimental depending on the intentions and actions of its user. The tool has changed not only how we consume and share the media, but also how we perceive the world, create relationships, and use and abuse language. In the 80s, Fauzan, you know this because you're old like me, they said the revolution will not be televised. In the 21st century, it can't help but be tweeted. New generations are speaking new languages. To be multilingual now means speaking in HTML code, English, Canadian English A, and Punjabi English Are. We no longer just talk. We email, we text, we Snapchat, we video chat, we Gchat, we Yahoo chat, we instant message, we used to AIM message in college, we Skype, we tweet, we retweet, we post, we blog, we Hulu, we upload, we download, we Facebook update, we swipe, we WhatsApp, we Instagram, we Candygram. If we're lucky, we Netflix and chill. If we have kids like I do, we Netflix and sleep. We Evite, we eGreet, we eMeet, and it all repeats. Also, we poke. Some of you poke more than others. Some of you poke more than others. Don't worry, no one's judging. Allah's watching. You know Judgment Day is around the corner when your mother adds you on Snapchat. That happened last week. Qiyamah is coming. Qiyamah is coming. My mother added me on Snapchat. It's over. Social media, for better or worse, is the weaponized tip of the spear. Lives, reputations, language, religion, and communities can be hijacked, used, abused, and smeared with a single tweet. The people who are using it most skillfully and strategically for propaganda and recruitment, unfortunately, are folks like ISIS and the alt-right. Ditto Fox News and Breitbart. During the US election last year, Fox News by far had the most interactions on Facebook, with 44 million people interacting with the posts. The long-distance number 2 was occupied by, drumroll, Breitbart, with 18 million. They beat out a list of establishment media outlets, including the New York Times and Washington Post. The dude who runs Breitbart is a gentleman by the name of Steve Bannon, who was a former advisor of Donald Trump, who also wrote a script for an unmade movie called Destroying the Great Satan, which opened up with a scene of the US Capitol adorned with a star and crescent flag and broadcasting, wait for it, the Adhan, the Muslim call to prayer. Steve Bannon also thinks that there is a Judeo-Christian war with Islam. And you can guess who he thinks the great Satan is. Islam. Awesome. Wonderful. Thank you, Wajahat, for coming to Canada and depressing us. What can we do? Nothing. It's over. Run for the hills. Save your lives. Save your children. It's Qiyamah. There's nothing we can do. Calm down. There's a great saying of the Prophet Muhammad, I paraphrase the hadith that was told to me by Willow Wilson, a writer, that even if you see the day of judgment coming around the corner, plant a seed. Even if you see the day of judgment coming around the corner, plant a seed. Our faith demands and requires hope and action. Cynicism and whining is easy, but it's also cheap and lazy. It means never exposing yourself to risk and always sitting in the stands like a spectator and doing nothing. We need Muslims to step into the ring and throw down as active participants, like Musa alayhi salam. Throw down hard in front of the Pharaoh with an emoji and a hashtag. No more whining, drinking chai while watching Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity on Fox News, complaining, saying boo-hoo-hoo. Those days are over. We can't afford it. I don't care if you're Canadian Muslim, a European Muslim, or an American Muslim. This is game time. Throw down hard with humble swagger. And remember this, if you aren't telling your story is always being told to you by others. And if you aren't writing or tweeting your story is always being written or tweeted for you by others. Also, with the smartphone and internet, which is a tool, realize that you are not just a passive consumer, but you are also now a publisher of content. You literally get to choose every day what to post and what to repost and what to share. You have tremendous power. And to quote the great Muslim superhero Spider-Man, who quotes Uncle Ben, who quotes Voltaire, with great power comes great responsibility. So I'm gonna leave you with top 10 tips of what we should do. But first, I'm going to do a test here. It's how it is in America. I don't know how it is in Canada, but there's a holy trinity of occupations, according to the studies, which most American Muslims occupy. What's the greatest maqam? The people who get to heaven first. The people Allah is most pleased with. What's the best profession you can be? Doctor. Mashallah. Say it louder. Doctor, mashallah, doctor. Allah asks them what they want. They get into heaven first. They get to marry someone who's 9 to 10 on the hotness scale, doctor. If you're not blessed enough to become a doctor, what's number 2? Not lawyer. Someone say an engineer. Say it. Engineer. You're not as good as a doctor. You'll get into heaven after the doctors. You can marry someone 7 to 8 on the hotness scale. Number 3. Not lawyer. Business. Thank you. Dubious businessman who somehow makes a lot of money and moves to the suburbs and gets a Lexus, BMW, or Mercedes and marries someone who's 6 to 7 to 8 on the hotness scale and becomes religious and takes a selfie in front of the Kaaba. And when you ask them what they do, they say factory. And when you ask them what type of factory, they say import-export. Then when you say what type of import-export, they say mind your own business. Business. Number 4, believe it or not, is taxi services. Americans depend upon us for taxi services. 90% of the occupations where there's 4. That leaves 10% for storytellers, journalists, politicians, lawyers. What else? Imams. What else? Therapists. What else? Academics. If you aren't telling your story is being told to you by others. 10 things we can do. Number 1, represent. Represent, represent. Encourage your children to get into mainstream media. Become the protagonist of the Canadian and American narrative. We need more storytellers. I'm tired of always saying, Beta, do you know who we had? Rumi. He lived 800 years ago. Mashallah. Where is the Rumi in Mississauga? Represent. Throw down and share your story. Do not cede the ground to extremists and haters. If you say, Wajahat, I'm just a guy with a smartphone, guess what? You can be the protagonist of the narrative. The Arab Spring, kids using social media. Black Lives Matter became a local issue, a national issue, an international issue. The Muslim ban, when it dropped, through social media, allies, friends, other religious communities got up in unison on a Saturday and took their kids to airport saying, we welcome all Muslims and foreigners and visitors. The Chapel Hill shooting, where 3 Muslim kids were shot and killed, it was a non-story until Muslim community members and students used social media with the hashtag Chapel Hill shooting, said pay attention to this. A non-story became a local story, became a national story, became an international trending story overnight. Represent. Number 2, acknowledge your confirmation bias, be aware of it, fight against it. I'll repeat that. Acknowledge your confirmation bias, be aware of it, fight against it. Confirmation bias means only seeking and accepting facts and stories that already confirm your opinions. Who here is guilty of that? Raise your hand. Everyone should be raising their hand. All of us are guilty. Acknowledge it, be aware of it, fight against it. Number 3, have consistent principles and be a consistent messenger. If you are against abuse of power, the silencing of a free press, and against tyranny, then call it out across the board. Whether Trump does it, whether Erdogan does it in Turkey, whether Sisi does it, whether Morsi did it, whether Iran does it, or whether Saudi Arabia does it. Be consistent. If you're not consistent, don't expect anyone to take you or your religious community seriously. Number 4, share responsibly. Sharing is caring. Why share fake news or a sensationalistic story that you got on your WhatsApp sent to you from Karachi by Uncle Salim when you are only adding poison to the digital atmosphere? All of us in the age of fake news and the attack on truth have to spend a little extra time and a little extra work figuring out whether or not a story is worth sharing. All of us have to do it. You spend time researching what school you want to put your kids into, right? You spend time about, medicine, about jobs. Spend time about the news and information stories that you share. Share responsibly. Number 5, speaking about Uncle Salim, don't be Uncle Salim. There's something called, I'm not making this up, there's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. They study this. The Dunning-Kruger effect shows this. The more ignorant a person is, the more they are confident they're actually not that ignorant or dumb. I'll repeat that. The more ignorant and dumb a person is, that person is more confident they're not ignorant or dumb. Example, Donald Trump. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Example, Uncle Salim. We all have an Uncle Salim. Uncle Salim is the one who comes to the Eid parties with no expertise, no real knowledge, just some strange facts he's collected over shady magazines and Jadoo TV, who holds court over Nahari, takes all the choice Nahari bordis, and like a sheikh, pontificates about conspiracy theories about how the Jews created ISIS, and you just sit there and listen to him, and you're like, but maybe he's right, but he's not, he's Uncle Salim. Don't be Uncle Salim. Number 6, intervene responsibly. Intervene responsibly. If you see someone being bullied on Facebook, on Twitter, you can intervene in the comments section. If you see fake news being spread, you can intervene and kill it. If you see bad news and bad adab, you can intervene and tell a positive news or have positive adab. Intervene responsibly. Number 7, bust out of your echo chamber and your isolated cocoon. In fact, I should say, bust out of your algorithm echo chamber and isolated cocoon. Engage with people who don't agree with you. What does that mean? Studies have shown that non-confrontational, blunt, frank conversations about heated issues such as religion, race, and sexuality, but done with empathy, actually change people's hearts and minds. I'll repeat that. Non-confrontational, blunt, frank conversations about heated issues, but done with empathy, change people's minds. Guess what, guys? That's called the Sunnah. Bust out of your cocoons, bust out of your echo chamber, talk to people who don't agree with you. Number 8, have digital adab. Have digital adab. You allegedly have adab in the real world, why don't you have adab on Facebook? If you wouldn't say it to someone's face, why write it in a Facebook post? Tagging that person. It's always a good test. Would I say this to this person's face if they were looking me right in the eye? If not, probably not say it. Have some digital adab. Number 9, Wajahat. These people are trolling me, man. This guy called me out, man. This guy called me whack, man. I have to respond, man. No, you don't. Ignoring is a response. In fact, it's prophetic conduct. Ignoring is a response. You do not have to accept every fight you're invited to. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ actively ignored most of the time. He was not a coward. Ignoring is a response, especially on social media. Choose your battles wisely. And finally, number 10, to quote the greatest Sufi sheikh who existed in a galaxy far, far away, Sheikh Yoda, quote, do or do not, there is no try. Thank you. I've been working on that the entire air flight. Air Canada, I was like, do or do do not. Do or do not. Do or do not. There is no try. I'll repeat the top 10. I'll finish in 30 seconds. Represent. Throw down. Become the protagonist of the American Muslim and Canadian Muslim narrative. Number 2, acknowledge your confirmation bias, be aware of it, fight against it. Number 3, for the love of Allah, have consistent principles and be a consistent messenger. Number 4, share responsibly. Number 5, do not be Uncle Salim. Number 6, intervene responsibly. Number 7, bust out of your echo chambers and cocoons. Have conversations with people who don't agree with you with some adab, with some empathy. Number 8, have digital adab. Number 9, ignoring is a response. Number 10, do or do not. There is no try. And if you fail, try again, learn from your mistakes, keep at it. We are human, we make mistakes, but that does not mean those mistakes have to define us. Last time I checked, Allah is merciful even when Muslims aren't. And again, to quote Sheikh Yoda from his latest bayan in The Last Jedi, quote, "The greatest teacher failure is." I have just been informed on social media that this was the single best speech ever given in the history of RIS. Whether or not that's an alternative fact is for you to decide. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Brother Wajahat Ali, keeping it real with fake news. I don't